Hello and welcome to the Southbound Sports Show. I'm your host, Richie Leahy, here with my co-host, Matty B. Rick is out this week. He's actually heading to spring training, going to provide some coverage for us. And so we'll kick it off without him. Go high tempo right off the bat. Matt, you have anything for this week?
Yeah, I have a pair of stories that really aggravated me. One of them was Giants wide receiver Odell Beckham. There was a video that was released that what appears to be drug paraphernalia all through the room with some woman that he was with. I didn't like the look and the impression of that. And combining that with the Oakland Raiders releasing Aldon Smith as the police warrants and some of the stuff that I think we may have touched on. I know I've been following the story just to see exactly how it's going to play out. But for a league that's really trying to clean up its image, here's two stories that are main high topic stories that are driving – that's going to make the league look bad, and they're not going to do anything about it. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I know we touched on Aldon Smith, just me and you, off the show, and I can't stand the guy. He was awful for Harbaugh at the 49ers. Harbaugh gave him every chance he could possibly give him. The front office kind of wanted him gone, but I mean, he gave him a chance to prove himself. He knew he loved football, but at some point, you stop loving football. I consider him to be a Pac-Man Jones type where should they really be in the league anymore? No. The NFL spends all their time on all this other petty bullshit, but whenever you have like real domestic abuse, drug stuff going on, and you don't do anything, you're kind of setting a precedent until the media gets an outrage. And Aldon Smith, to be honest, he's not a top-tier player anymore. He was under Harbaugh. Harbaugh had enough coaching acumen to reel him in. And now he dropped off. He's with the Raiders, so that makes sense that he's with the Outlaw program. And
he's with nobody now because they canned him.
Yeah.
When you get fired from the Raiders, it's time to hang it up.
Yeah, and to be honest, that's what should happen. And I'm sure some other team will sign him just because they're hoping to get that flash in a pan going. And with the Odell Beckham thing, to be honest, I thought you were going to lead off with the video of him. I was thinking, Matt, that's a Super Bowl commercial where he did that stupid, what was that, Flashdance, or what the hell is that movie? He did that thing with Eli
Dirty
Manning.
Dancing with stupid Eli, and
Yeah.
I hated on that too. That's one of the reasons why the same people that are going to criticize Aldon Smith and say that he's one of the worst things to happen to the NFL and how he has all this domestic abuse and all these other issues, but then Odell Beckham, we're gonna keep him up on this pedestal and try to like make him be a topic of conversation in the NFL. I don't get it. He hasn't had outstanding performances for 2 years now because he's let his ego get the best of him. It's not showing on the field. You know, if you're gonna run your mouth and do the kinds of things, at least guys like Ocho Cinco were able to back it up on the field. He would do all kinds of antics and have all kinds of sideline displays and end zone dances. But the thing is, he backed it up and he worked his ass off. When you work the way that he did, you can get away with it. But these guys they run their mouth and then you can't back it up. It infuriates me to no end.
Yeah, and Ocho Cinco and Terrell Owens, they didn't really do anything like this. I would consider them just more marketing geniuses. They got their name out there. Everybody knew who they were. They sold a ton of jerseys. I would assume players get some cut of that. Maybe I'm wrong. They even had enough name brand power to get their own TV show together. But they did. I don't think they were a black eye on the league like the league thought they were a black eye. Terrell Owens should be in the Hall of Fame. Ocho Cinco had high numbers. I don't know if they were as high, but Terrell Owens was legit. And then, yeah, you had Chad Johnson getting in trouble. But he was enough where he was a good enough teammate that Bill Belichick brought him into the New England Patriots. So you wouldn't see that here. Now you're just having guys, and it's kind of with the social media age, you're blurring the lines. He's doing crazy commercials so people know who he is, and then he's going to get away with something like this. And on the other hand, then you have people who were going to go after one guy, Aldon Smith, and not the other. I say both of them. NFL, go after both of them because this is a black guy in both your leagues. But who knows? Because they let Laramie Tunsil hit a gas bong or whatever that was, a gas mask bong, on draft night, and they didn't care. I mean, he still got drafted, and no one really did anything to him, did they? I mean, I think he's still in the league. I don't know how good he even is, but it's just one of the things. They're either going to clean it up or they're not. And the fake cleanup, I think everyone sees right through it, and that's why the ratings keep dropping. And I'll just put it at that. Go ahead.
I think that you just hit exactly on the issue that we were driving home last week with some of the NCAA scandals. It's the same thing, that either clean it up and do what you say you're going to do, or let it go. Don't ride the fence and pick and choose which people you're going to do it to, because all it does is it just makes for a bad league, so to speak, because we're going to take one guy and make an example out of him, but then leave someone else to go. And we've beat that dead horse 1,000 times on this program, that they need to just make their mind up of what kind of league they want. If they want to try to be a little bit more politically correct, then push that avenue. Don't tell me that, like with any other business, they say, if you're doing these certain things, you're going to be fired.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know. I'll go ahead and I'll throw in, I was going to save this. It's not going to be my high tempo, but I wanted to bring it up and make sure I hit a point. But with the ratings and things, like you said, are they going to take control or not? Because a big rumor that came out on ESPN was that Georgia Bulldogs are looking at hiring Rick Pitino. You cannot hire a guy that's fired for an FBI investigation. The NCAA should step in and say no, and maybe they will. But it seems like the NCAA is kind of just wagging their tail. They're kind of doing what the NFL is doing. If there's enough public outlash, yeah, they'll do something. But if they're legitimately giving him an interview, Georgia's dirty. And it's just going to prove everybody right who thinks that's under Kirby Smart. Hey, how did they turn around so fast under Kirby Smart here? Did they just take the Ole Miss guys, the old backdealing SEC, now that Ole Miss is under investigations? It's very, very shady that they can turn around so fast with a brand new coach. And it's looking like players, we mentioned on the recruiting podcast, a lot of other major outlets didn't mention it, but a couple of Georgia guys had tweeted pictures of them with cars. So, I mean, there's something there. One guy, I'm pretty sure, one of the guys I've heard say that they came out and they got a $10,000 offer from Clemson. And he's spoken about it freely. I forget. It might even have been a Michigan guy that came to Michigan, and he said that he was offered $10,000. So, I mean, you're looking at it. I mean, there's a spotlight on it. Is the NCAA going to do anything? Is the FBI going to do anything? Because it's been kind of silent. And, I mean, the tournament's starting. We'll go through our picks here at the end of the show. But I just wanted to make sure that I hit on that because the NFL's in the same boat. It's kind of like over and over again. And with the way the news is, news only shows things negative. If you only watch sparingly, and I'm like, what's the latest NFL news? And those are the things I see, I'm going to think, oh, same old NFL. Why tune in hasn't changed. So I don't know. In this free agency period, we're going to get back into the NFL here in a second. My high tempo, I wanted to just give a shout out. And this, I don't know if I should tie this into the Steel City update, but Penn State hockey was eliminated from the Big Ten tournament on Saturday to Notre Dame. I think there might have been 30 seconds left in the third. And it was a crazy game. And I just wanted to mention the Big Ten tournament for hockey is set up so backwards. I don't understand who came up with this idea. So, Matt, I don't know if you've seen, but they did a best of 3 in the first round. And then they switched to a single elimination for the better matchups. So in the best of 3 rounds, Penn State swept their opponent, Michigan swept their opponent, and so did Ohio State. So you had 3 sweeps in the early rounds because you're playing the garbage bottom of the league. And then whenever they have great games, so the Penn State Notre Dame game was won. It was 3-2. I think it was like 30 seconds left. Michigan, Ohio State, the following hockey game, Michigan loses in overtime. So you had much better matchups in this round, but it's single elimination. It's like they set it up backwards. I don't understand.
Well, what it sounds like is that the format originally seemed like a good idea of if there's going to be, like, they want to eliminate some form of like an NCAA March Madness where some team that has no business knocking off a top-seeded team. So we'll do a best of 3 there. But then if we push every series to 3 games, then you run right into the middle of the basketball tournament, and you're going to lose what few people are following the hockey tournament now. So we got to hurry up and make sure that we get our winner crown before the basketball tournament starts, is the way that it comes off to me.
Well, I was thinking the same thing, but what happens is I don't think the championship game is till next weekend, and I could be wrong. I might have missed it. Let's look it up just to make sure. But I mean, what it felt like to me is they gave their top teams these weaker opponents to help boost their tournament profile. Because instead of having a best of 3 against a team where both top teams will probably end up with a loss in that scenario, dropping them down because they do the same similar RPI thing that basketball does, where wins count more than good losses. It just feels like they kind of manufactured this. Like, let's get our 3, our 2 through 4 seeds. Let's get them 2 more wins on their tournament resume, and that's what they did. And then by having it only single elimination, they're guaranteeing that each of those teams is only going to have 1 more loss on their resume. So they basically just did a 2-for-1 in the tournament, and they're saying this tournament cannot hurt you. And I did see Michigan, they were like 8 in power points after their loss on Saturday. So they're probably going to get in the tournament. I'm pretty sure Penn State's going to get in the tournament. And I've heard that it's opposite of the basketball one, where Penn State, they'll try to place them in the regional that they're hosting in Pennsylvania to try to get fans to go. So that's good news for Penn State fans. That's why I wanted to bring it up. That's what I'm hearing, is that Penn State's going to be in, possibly a 3 seed, and they're going to be located in Pennsylvania. And I can't remember where that's going to be. I don't know if it's exactly in-state college, but that's what I'm hearing. So good news there. Even though they lost, I think the Big Ten kind of set it up to help make sure these teams weren't eliminated if they got swept in the second round. As a fan, I would have liked to see more hockey because those were some great games, and I hope the Big Ten does well in the tournament. So I'll stick with hockey here. And yeah, it's March 17th, actually, before I get into it. Notre Dame and Ohio State. It's at Notre Dame. So yeah, they did kind of string it out. So the championship is, you're right, it's going to be overshadowed by the NCAA tournament. So if you're going to do single elimination, why not just end it this past Sunday? I mean, the Big Ten didn't have a basketball championship, so I agree with you, Matt. Just throw it on there. But we'll go to the NHL now. Penguins, they're hanging right behind the Caps. I'm ready. I'm already in playoff mode. Get Matt Murray healthy. Get the Penguins in. They're 85-84, so 1 point behind. They've got a pretty good lead here, looking at the wild card teams. So unless something drastic happens, the Penguins are going to be in the playoffs. So right now, win the games you're supposed to. Get guys healthy. If you drop a few, I mean, you could easily pass the Caps. But I wanted to bring up and congratulate. I know a lot of Penguin guys absolutely hate him, but Ovechkin got his 600th goal. He's the 4th fastest player in NHL history, and he's behind Gretzky, Lemieux, our own. Should we call him owner? And Brett Hall. So, killer list. I'm a huge fan of Ovechkin, and I know that it goes against most Penguins guys. He reminds me of like that. He's like the guy you're friends with that's a little bit less successful than you to make yourself feel better. Because as a Penguins fan, that's how you know. He's good enough to get enough press that they boost up that Penguin series. But you know the Penguins always beat them. So it's okay if he's good and he's getting his 600th goal. He's like a nice adversary. Like an Apollo Creed to Rocky. Because, I mean, that's what it is. A lot of people hate him, but I mean, he's a great trash talker, and I love playing against him because we just always come out on top. And to be honest, if he did win a Stanley Cup, I would actually be really happy for him. And I think he deserves it. I don't know if he'll get it at Washington, and I don't know. He doesn't seem like the kind of guy to kind of chase a cup. So we'll see what happens. But very cool. Right now it's between him and Crosby again. Nice rivalry we have here. Kind of lucky as Penguin fans that have been on top of that one so many times in a row. But that's my feelings on that. Matt, you have anything else to add?
I kind of felt the same way. It's like he's one of those guys that it's great to root against him, but from an individual standpoint, you can't knock the production that he has. The Caps as a franchise, though, is very laughable because they're one of those teams that they thought last year they went out and picked up some players right before the trade deadline and thought, oh, they're going to make a run. And they flame out. They just like run themselves flat by the end of the first round of the playoffs. They're at home watching like we are. So it's good that at least he's getting the individual accolades. Like the Peyton Manning of hockey, sans those 2 luckouts that he had.
Yeah, they're like our version of the Bengals for hockey. Like they get in there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't mind him as a player. I do like the fact that he's a star and he brings viewers in. Like everyone will tune in to watch. That's a big rivalry for non-fans. They'll know Ovechkin versus Crosby, 2 of the greats. Hopefully we get to see it here in the playoffs again. And if the Penguins would have to lose to someone, it would kind of hurt. But at this time, back-to-back Stanley Cup champions, Ovechkin, he does so much for the sport. I wouldn't mind seeing him win. But
he does. His style is so different too. Where Crosby's more finesse, Ovechkin plays such a physical style that I almost think that even if he were a free agent and Pittsburgh had an opportunity, like he wouldn't be a player that you could pick up because he just doesn't mesh well with the finesse style play that the Penguins have.
He's so strong that a lot of people didn't think he was going to last. So you look at like him getting these goals and everything. It's how long can someone that physical play? And I mean, it's a testament. I like his style. It's a nice, like you said, it's a contrast to what Crosby has. So it is pretty cool to watch those 2 guys go at it. And he definitely has more of an attacking style. Some of the things that I know a lot of Penguins fans wish they saw more from, like Malkin and these other guys. Like just attack with the puck because you see Ovechkin do it. And I mean, great. I'm happy for him. And another guy I wanted to celebrate on this is Marc-Andre Fleury. Fleury got his 400th win. Out of 728, I think, was the appearance. And he's the second fastest goalie to reach 400 behind Henrik Lundqvist. So great company to be in. I know I was harsh on him, so I definitely wanted to give him another shout out. I was harsh on him last year. Thought the Penguins definitely should put him up for the expansion draft, which they did. Kind of hurt when Murray goes down. But off the bat, man, I couldn't be happier for him. I know Pittsburgh still loves him. You could see that whenever he came back into town. And good to see him doing that. Anything else you want to add on the Penguins, Matt?
Nope, just I was happy for Marc-Andre Fleury as well. And to see that he's continuing that success. Although hopefully they don't make it too far because Vegas is definitely going to be an up-and-comer, I think, for the playoffs.
Yeah, Vegas, they pretty much have their division locked up. I mean, anything could happen in the last couple of weeks here, but I think they pretty much have that locked up. I'm going to go ahead. Go ahead.
I actually thought when Vegas announced their franchise and the players that they had, like being able to rob basically every other franchise of good players, I thought that there was no way that they were going to make all of that work with the cap. So the management and the owners that they had did an excellent job of acquiring these players and getting the system to work so that they have such a competitive team, moving forward. Because it could have went either way. They could have just had all of these great trade assets to just completely blow the team up if it didn't look like they were winning. But they're definitely built to win right now. And it looks like, getting all those Penguins and former Penguin players out there, they're almost like the Arizona Cardinals of the NHL, where they just take all of the former Pittsburgh players and mesh them together out west and continue to have success.
It kind of feels like, to me, for an NFL comparison, whenever the Jags and the Carolina Panthers both came into the league, they had enough ownership to get a roster put together. I think it was the second year. Was it both of them made their championship games or something crazy like that? I think did Kerry Collins break his jaw that year? I was quite young, but it's kind of like that. So they have a very small window like those teams have. You can catch luck in a bottle or whatever, right now. You have to hit it because after this, like you said, Matt, it's going to be very tough to keep everyone under cap. You're in a lucky situation with the draft. NFL teams, they made it very close to the Super Bowl, couldn't get to that next level, and then they kind of dipped for a few years. Jacksonville for a lot longer. I think Carolina got back and made it to the Super Bowl about a decade after they were formed. No, maybe it was less than that. It might have been 7 years or so because they lost to one of the Tom Brady teams. So it took a while for them to get back. So Vegas right now is in a win now mode. And yeah, they do look scary. And especially getting like a Fleury, if we had to face him in the finals, that'd be pretty brutal because, man, he had to practice with these guys for how long? So he probably knows a lot of their tricks. So it's kind of like you don't want a John Gruden going to the opposite team type scenario. Go ahead, get to Major League Baseball. Like I said, Rick's going to spring training. Pirates in spring training. Right now we're 6-10, and all I have to think is, how do we ever win 6? I forget. That's like a movie. I forget what that one's from. But yeah, the Pirates, dude. I don't really have much. Baseball. It's kind of I have heard through talking to some fans online and stuff that opening day. If you remember back in the fall, we had a beef with the NFL forcing people to pay for preseason tickets. Well, a lot of the major league clubs, from what I've heard, talking to some people, is if you try to get opening day tickets, they try to sell them to you in a package. So they want you to buy like, oh, if you want opening day tickets, you have to get a mini package with us. We want you on board all year. Sonny, you can't come in because a few years ago, like I would get together with a group of my friends and we would go to Pirates. It might not have been quite opening day, but we went down and just scalped a few tickets because this practice, and I don't even know if the Pirates still do this or whatever, but this practice of trying to get season tickets or I don't even know what they're called, mini season packages, is outrageous. So, I mean, it's happening and they're just driving up the prices. They want you to pay a couple $100 instead of $30 for opening day. And opening day up north is awful. Pittsburgh, it's always cold. And I mean, I'm just going for home openers. I don't think Pittsburgh, maybe they have an opening day game, but even just the home openers. And I think it's a complete ripoff. I can't call out the NFL and then not call out the MLB for effectively doing the same thing. If you want to get opening day, you have to have a season package. So total ripoff. Go ahead, Matt. You have any thoughts on that?
Well, one of the things I did see was that it appeared as though people actually are following through. Like the ticket sales of what they're projecting for opening day is like 20,000 less than usual. And one of the things that's working against the fan base is back to PNC Park. For those of you who haven't been there, is a beautiful ballpark. I mean, they have a great baseball atmosphere there. So there is a draw for people who are fans of other teams to come and check out the ballpark and check out that Pittsburgh area because it is really nice. But you're not going to see competitive baseball until you get rid of the ownership, unfortunately.
Yeah, and you're right. Sometimes traveling fans will come in, and unfortunately, they come to see the Pirates because they know there's a good chance their team's going to win. So I made the same trip from Pittsburgh up to Cleveland for that same reason. See the Pirates win back in the day. Now that would never happen. So I could see easily some other fans traveling in. And yeah, it is nice, but is that going to be enough? No. And Major League Baseball, they need to get away from some of their cable TV practices. They could have gone all in on Major League Baseball Network. It works well. The streaming, I think some of the stuff ESPN even bought to use for their streaming. I've had it in the past. It's awesome to have game packages at your fingertips, but you can't get away some of your bigger market teams. Like, okay, you can pay for this package, but you can't see every single game. If the Pirates play the Yankees or someone, you have to also pay for Yes Network or something else. So you can't really follow your team all 162 games. I think if they put together a digital package for that, you would see a lot of the younger fans come. Because I was one that would take a summer class at night and would follow games on my phone. And this is like way back before they even had mobile. Like they would do the game cast and they would show you like the little baseball field and like the little dots where your guys were running. I was like one of the only people in my class like back back in the day that had internet on my phone, and that's how I would follow games. So you're telling me if I would have a chance to watch every single game, it would be a way to draw younger kids in, and I think they should do it, and we'll probably touch on that again. But the last thing, Steelers, NFL, going to go ahead and just pop this into the NFL free agency talk. Matt, you want to get an overview of what you heard from the Steelers so far?
As far as the Steelers stuff, the two big moves in there, not too crazy. Mike Mitchell was released, and William Gay was released. The thing that I just saw was that offensive lineman Villanueva, best known for his controversial walk out of the tunnel for the national anthem.
Wait, he didn't know where he was.
He forgot. I know when you're at Heinz Field, it's tough not to know when you're out on the field where everyone can see you. But he restructured his contract, and so Pittsburgh was able to save about $4 million of cap space, which is huge coming into this time of year. Not that Pittsburgh's going to spend any of that money. No, that's too easy. We can hold on to that and pay for our upcoming draft picks, where we're not going to move up or down. We'll just stay put, draft the best player available. I think there were some options and some people out there that could potentially be good fits in Pittsburgh, but it's to be determined whether they're actually going to spring for a player to help them out pre-draft.
And I wanted to clarify, last week I kind of stumbled upon around, they did franchise tag Le'Veon Bell. I don't know if that came across clear in my little rant on that. And Antonio Brown, he restructured his contract to give the Steelers more cap room. So I'm a little surprised to see our defensive backs going and them not really aggressively pursuing someone. Defensive secondary is a position where you really would like a veteran. You really don't want a rookie to come in. I think back to, when did the Patriots, who did they bring in that year they won the Super Bowl? They brought in a cornerback from the Jets. I'm blanking. Was it Revis? Who'd they bring in?
Well, they had Revis, but when they really turned the corner was when they brought in Rodney Harrison from the Chargers.
Oh, you're going way back. It was like last year, or 2015 or 16. They signed a cornerback from the Jets. Who was that? Revis, yeah. They signed him because, and the Patriots are one to come in from the draft where they always trade back, draft a guy, and train him. But at that position, and you're right, you can go back to the Rodney Harrison years. You bring in veteran defensive backs, and that's how you win. So the Steelers, man, that was definitely the weakness last year for us. Get some guys that know the position.
But there's one of two ways that you can look at this. You can either go, and I think that Pittsburgh has been trying to find that person in the secondary. They're getting there. It's just going at a snail's pace. They finally got Burns on one side, and they're slowly coming around to trying to fill out some of these other positions. If you have a strong secondary, and I'll use like the case in point was the Seahawks from a couple years ago, and right now with what the Rams did in free agency, oh my God, they are absolutely loaded in their secondary. That you can have, when you have four outstanding defensive backs like that, you can pretty much do whatever you want coverage wise, and feel comfortable and feel confident in your abilities to make quarterbacks have to take their time and give a lesser pass rush to get there. The other route that you may look at is, can you get enough pressure with your 3-4 or your 4-3 or whatever you want to run? Can you get pressure on the quarterback with those front guys enough to make the quarterback have to rush throws? You can't go either way. And what you see with Pittsburgh is they have a crappy pass rush and they have a crappy secondary, so that as soon as they see that the blitz is coming, they throw the check downs, and the other team's players just run right down the field. If you have a secondary that can cover someone, they can slow those or reduce the amount of yardage after the catch.
Yeah, that's what I would like to see. Get some playmakers. I know Richard Sherman was out there. I think he went to the 49ers, which was a surprise to me. And he goes back to that Legion of Boom, that Seattle defense you brought up. They had him playing like the nickel, because they were like, we don't know if he's even good enough in coverage. And then whenever he gets promoted, they lose a few guys or whatever, he's like a lockdown corner anyway. So that's whenever you have depth to do whatever you want. Whenever you have a guy like that in the nickel, I'm just surprised. I know John Lynch is doing things. What did he say? Garoppolo was the reason that he signed. He talked to him, and they think they're going to put something together long term there. So,
well, one of the things that I never really, as a fan, you don't think about it this way, but Richard Sherman had a quote, because I guess a lot of people were attacking him, saying, "Well, you got cut from Seattle. Why would you sign with someone in the division? And like, why would you do this to us?" He's like, "Well, why would you be mad at me for signing a contract for someone who wants me? Why won't you be mad at the team that released me?" And as a fan, that really hit home, because there's a lot of times where you see a player leave or you see him sign with someone else and you think, why'd you leave? Why would you go there? Like, why would you? And if the shoe's on the other foot and it's like, hey, someone else is going to pay you more money to go do your job, are you going to stay with your job where your boss hates you? Like, no, you're going to get that money and you're going to leave so fast.
This reminds me exactly of the James Harrison. I feel like the bad fan, because he went and he just went to the Patriots but that was seemingly no reason. I know the Steelers, they kind of they forced his hand, because he really wouldn't have been cut mid-season like that. But yeah, Sherman's right. Postseason, or in the offseason, I guess it's considered. Yeah, if they're going to cut you, he's free to sign with whoever he wants. Come on, guys, it's a business. They don't care about the fans. You should know that by now. So why would they care about the players? That's my feelings on it. Kind of a negative take, but I agree with Sherman on that one. Let's see what else. Oh, another dude. The Seahawks are losing everyone. They lost Paul Richardson. I'm pretty sure he signed, or he's planning on, if he didn't yet, $40 million with the Redskins. And this is just what's wrong with the Redskins. They couldn't offer Cousins, and they were dealing around with him like, oh yeah, we'll give you a contract. Paul Richardson, give me a break. Is he even the best receiver on that team? They're like $40 million, and this isn't the first time. Didn't they do that with Santana Moss? And who else? They always seem to sign these receivers for tons of money.
Antoine Randall L.
Yeah, Randall L. But you have all these guys come in, and then what happens when you can't get someone the ball? Deshaun Jackson was another one they signed. So it's crazy that you're watching, and the opposite's happening in Minnesota. If they get Cousins, because that's where it's looking like he's going to go now, right?
Yes, I'm pretty sure that's where he's either signed or going to.
Yeah, it looks like it's almost a guarantee, because, who'd the Broncos get? Broncos signed Keenum, right?
Yes.
Is that how this is? So basically all the teams that were in for Kirk Cousins were in free agency, and they all started to sign people. So Keenum went from Minnesota to Denver. Drew Brees stayed put and signed a 2-year deal to stay with the Saints. I thought that was going to be an underrated move potentially, because, I mean, let's be honest, you could bring in Cousins and have more of a future, but if you're in a win now mode, I think Drew Brees is a better option. When has he had really a down year? He's almost Tom Brady-esque in how old he is and how good he is.
But I also think that with where Drew Brees is at, he has Sean Payton as his coach. He has a system that's working well for him. I think you take him out of that and that familiarity that he has with his teammates and things, I don't know that he's going to be as successful at this point of his career. Kirk Cousins to Minnesota is a perfect fit, because they're not going to ask him to win games in Minnesota. His job is going to be to hand the ball off to Dalvin Cook. It's going to be don't throw interceptions at bad points of the game and let the defense take over. All he has to be is a game manager. With the variety of quarterbacks who have been through Minnesota this past year due to injury and due to different stuff, all Kirk Cousins has to do is not be Kirk Cousins, and he'll be in good shape. He can do what he did at Michigan State and just be a game manager.
Yeah, and he handed off to Bell all the time there. And that's another...
Absolutely.
And that's a destination where look out for Bell. If he is going to leave, why not go back with Kirk Cousins and go to Minnesota? You know that's a running back friendly team. Not saying that he's bound to leave, but Minnesota's trying to put together that old school power run first team, and they're not afraid to bring guys in. But yeah, you're right. Drew Brees, I was thinking more along the lines of when Minnesota brought in the gunslinger, Brett Favre. They had decent success under him. It wasn't enough to get them to that top level, but bringing in something like Drew Brees would have been something if they weren't able to get Cousins. I'm a little surprised Cousins didn't go to the Broncos, but I would see them and the Vikings very similarly built. I think the Broncos aren't as talented as they were a few years ago. I think if they were, that is definitely where he would have signed, sort of like around the time Peyton Manning signed. And I think that was kind of their chance right there. They took it. They got the Super Bowl. And I don't know, like the Vikings are sort of on that same trajectory. They're bringing in the quarterback. They were close last year. They know they can get to that guy if they get a steady quarterback that can make some of those extra throws. And we'll see what happens.
And I think as far as while you're bringing up the quarterbacks, one of the things that stands out to me is this new dynamic that's playing out. You know, we joked around last year about Mike Glennon signing that massive contract and Brock Osweiler with his massive contract being spread around. I think the Philadelphia Eagles have laid the groundwork for how that system works, where you have Nick Foles, you take that veteran that is kind of just a journeyman type player. So you have these guys like a Kirk Cousins, you have a Alex Smith, Case Keenum, all these different quarterbacks who you consider average to below average, be the backup quarterback or the veteran mentor for these younger draft picks. So you have your Mitch Trubisky's with Chicago, your Carson Wentz's in Philadelphia, that if something happens to the offense, to go from that rookie gunslinger to the older veteran, you're not going to have as crazy of a drop-off because all you're looking at is just to have that game manager. One of the reasons Philly was so successful is that after Wentz went down, Nick Foles didn't have to win games. All he had to do was just manage the offense, and he did a great job of it.
Yeah, and when he did have to make throws in the Super Bowl, he did. So, I mean, you have someone that's smart enough to play within the system, take some chances, but not like crazy chances down the middle and double coverage, that type of deal. Take some deep throws if you have them and complete them, and then what happens? You win a Super Bowl. And speaking of him, the Sam Bradford went to the Arizona Cardinals. So there's a chance now Foles might stay with the Eagles, leading up this great quarterback battle in Philadelphia. Like, what do they do? Because I would have thought they would have tried anything they could have did to avoid that. Jets are trying to get Teddy Bridgewater, and those are pretty much fills all the empty big quarterback holes. With basically the two best would have been Denver and Minnesota, followed by Arizona, and then you have I don't think Foles would have wanted to go to the Jets. Now is he going to stay? I mean, he did win a Super Bowl there. Is backup quarterback in a bad position? Is he even going to be the backup?
If you're the owner, I think you have to sign him because you don't know what kind of condition Wentz is going to come back in. If there's any rust,
exactly.
If there's any kind of snap, I mean, you look at Andrew Luck, who in Indianapolis would have projected him to be missing the amount of time that he has over the last couple of years. He's missed a ton of games due to complications from his shoulder surgeries, that if you don't have a decent backup, you're going to be drafted in the top 5 for a long time.
Yeah, and Andrew Luck, I've heard his name come up in some potential moves just to kind of do a complete reboot. Now, with all the moves that happened today, I doubt that happens, to try to get something in the draft unless, I mean, could you imagine if the Browns try to do something for them? For him, I don't know. Some other ones, the Packers brought in Jimmy Graham. They're trying to get some more weapons for Aaron Rodgers. I've been critical of him. I think he has a lot of hype. Took advantage of one great year, and he doesn't win consistently enough in big games. Yeah, anyone can beat up on the Lions and the Bears when they're down and win a division. But I mean, look how many times the Steelers have won the AFC North because of how bad the Bengals and Browns have been. So it's really a 2-team division, and the Lions aren't going over the top that much with Matt Stafford. So they kind of win by default, or I guess the Lions I meant were down. The Vikings, whenever you don't have a good quarterback for 10 years now, you're on quarterback by committee. It's not that hard to win a few division crowns. So, I mean, they're trying to do something. Eagles released Brett Selleck. I didn't even know he was still with them, to be honest.
Yeah, Jordy Nelson was released from Green Bay, so I think the them picking up Jimmy Graham is going to be a great pickup, but I'm curious to see if that's going to be a cut and then re-sign at a lower rated deal, or to see what they're able to sign in the draft, and maybe teams will make a play for him as a roster filler. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that might be where they're leaning with that. Another one, a big one I saw was Amendola going to the Dolphins. And the Dolphins are another tweener team. I thought, are you set with Tannehill? Because that could have been a team where you try to lure in Drew Brees. I know it didn't happen. But you have some weapons. I mean, they lost Ajayi, but I mean, over time, something has to happen. Or are you going to just keep going with mediocrity?
I think they're content with that because they know off the top they're not going to compete with New England. They got rid of Ajayi. They traded Landry to Cleveland. Yeah. Cleveland picked them up. So, I mean, the weapons that they have, plus owning the 1 and 4 first-round draft picks, they have a lot of potential to make a splash.
Yeah, and Tom Brady's not going to be there forever, so at this point, what's the harm of trying to rebuild now for when he does step away? And since I mentioned Tom Brady, I feel really bad for my man. He had a pretty big gash on his hand. And leading up to the Super Bowl, a lot of media, they were saying that was fake injury. Didn't look like it, Matt. What did you think of that cut?
It looked like some great Hollywood artwork.
Did you see that acupuncture one?
Yes, it just looked like a big fake job to make it out. I don't even know if it's him anymore. He's had so much Botox and plastic surgery and everything else to make himself feel better. Out there marching around in his Uggs. It may not even be him. It may just be like Dan Marino reincarnated or something.
You have to just check and see if he has a handful of Super Bowl rings, I guess. Dan Marino's hands were clean. Anyone could be that. I could walk down with no Super Bowl rings. But,
that one hurt.
But that's all I had for NFL free agency. Anything else you want to add before we get to the NCAA stuff?
Just the Cleveland Browns. They've been a joke for such a long time. I mean, so for a while you could just say Cleveland Browns and get a good laugh. But I think they may actually have some owners that kind of have an idea of what's going on. If they actually draft Barkley number 1, that's a lot of talent and a lot of weapons that teams are going to have to game plan for this season. So they could, I don't know if all of the weapons are there for them to make a deep playoff run or contend for the AFC. But I definitely think they're going to be a team going into this coming season that if they draft right, they're not going to be the doormat of the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, if you keep getting weapons and weapons, something's going to happen, right? I would assume. And that's if they're getting,
I don't know.
Like you said, Barkley, but could hit. How many people do you think would flip to cheer for them if Barkley does go there from Penn State land?
I don't know. I mean, how many flipped when Kajana Carter went to the Bungles? Or any of the other backs that left Penn State and didn't do anything in the NFL.
And busted. Man, yeah. I did tweet out the Tom Brady pictures. If you want to see it, it's on our Twitter. Follow us at S-Bound Sports. And we'll go ahead and get into the NCAA tournament now. Unfortunately, Pitt did not get the call. I don't.
It was close. They were on the bubble.
Hey, I only said that because Jeff had texted us and asked if Pitt got in. Like, I know. Sometimes it's tough for Pitt grads to go ahead and face reality, but I didn't see Penn State get in either. But I didn't think so. And the other team from the Big Ten, Nebraska, they didn't get in. And I mentioned it. Maybe it's because they're football schools. They were on the bubble. Do you get in? No. Is there anything you can do better? I mean, Nebraska won 13 games in the Big Ten. That's a ton of games. And what needs to happen is they need to win. You need to win the tournament. The Big Ten needs to win it or get some teams to the Final Four. But I'll kind of just go through each bracket side and kind of give our picks. We'll start with the South. Virginia is far and away the best team. And I don't know if you have a bracket, Matt, to follow along or what.
Yeah, I'm just pulling mine up here.
We did this last year, and to be honest, it was one of our best received podcasts of all time because I've been crunching the numbers. But it's basically your best bets. If you're looking at the bracket, what's your best picks for teams to advance? And I know a lot of these media types, they pick the same teams every year, but at some point, these teams aren't going to make it. Like I've seen a ton of people pick Purdue. When has Purdue ever advanced like past the Sweet 16? Maybe 1 or 2 times. And don't tell me it's because they have Haas. They always have one big, huge, ogre-looking 7-footer. It hasn't helped them in the past. At some point, coaching matters.
For those of you that don't know, Purdue is in Indiana. That's what they do. They grow corn and they shoot baskets and wooden beach baskets. That's what they do.
And I'll start with Purdue and the other Big Ten teams, since I know the Big Ten the best, being a Michigan man. But Michigan State, guess who they have to face? Duke. You know how many media guys I've seen pick Michigan State for the Final Four of the national championship? Almost all of them. And guess what? Michigan State's 1-11 against Coach K with Tom Izzo. 1-11. You got to take the odds at some point, guys. I mean, Duke's not a bad. Duke's a higher seed.
Here's a hot take for you. If you don't have either Duke or Carolina in your Final Four, you're a moron. Because all they do, that's just like saying every year, Alabama isn't going to make the playoff. Bullshit. It's going to happen. One of those 2 teams is going to, Duke or Carolina is going to be in your Final Four. Go ahead and pencil it in right now.
Exactly. We're just going to give you tips. Like, you got to pick teams that always go. Yeah, you can pick some upsets in the early rounds, but you got to go with the big guys. They have the most wins in the tournament for a reason. I mean, that's the key to success. Don't use blind hatred to pick against teams that you want, because it's not going to work out. I've won a few polls. I got gifted glass NCAA tournament cups. I might find them, Instagram them. I know I definitely have a foldable lawn chair from winning one year. So I've gotten random things for winning pools. So this is the advice I would follow. Virginia right now is pretty much the best defensive team. They are also in a bracket with Kentucky and Arizona. So in your lower rounds, Virginia is either going to face Creighton or Kansas State. At this point, doesn't really matter. It's going to come down to Virginia against either Kentucky or Arizona. Do you think the locker room problems are going to hurt Arizona? Because otherwise, they have the most talent. Do they have the best coach? And to be honest, the rest of this bracket's kind of a joke. Tennessee is a 3 seed. Get out of here. I mean, come on. They have a good chance they could lose to Miami in the second round. And Texas has a huge freshman. Huge Bomba. He was a 5-star guy. And they have Shaka Smart. Remember him from the VCU runs? If there's another team that's set to knock off a number 2, look for Texas versus Cincinnati. I would say the safest pick, though, would probably just be to go with Cincinnati. Have them play your choice, Virginia, Kentucky, or Arizona. What do you think in that side, Matt?
On that side,
that's the South.
I don't know.
I don't know which bracket you're looking at.
The South, I'm kind of leaning towards the Arizona, to be honest with you, just because I think there's so much NCAA investigation that I want to think that it's going to rally the troops, so to speak, and I think that's going to be something that's going to pull them going forward. I mean, and it helps that they're a talented team. It's not like they're taking some bums off the street or that they're firing people in the process. I mean, the coaches firing back at the NCAA saying that their charges are BS. The federal government is lying. So I think Arizona is going to make a run, and it's just going to push all of the other news and the speculation so that if by chance that they do win, it'll just be stripped in a year or 2 anyhow.
And I agree. They're going to play Kentucky. And when has Calipari's had the number 1 ranked recruiting class for a while, or at least one of the top ones. And how many Final Fours has he been to? Not that many. So if you're looking for an upset, well, I actually guess that one wouldn't really be an upset. Arizona over them. It's going to come down to them or Virginia. And I could see it going either way. So go with your gut there. Arizona or Virginia. Virginia has the best defense, but again, When has Virginia ever really won? I know they have a new identity lately, so maybe they'll finally get over that hump. But we'll move on to we'll save the West bracket for last since that has Florida State and Michigan in. We'll go to the East. Villanova, number 1 seed. They've been upset before. They were the year before they won the national championship. They lost in the second round to NC State. I know that here from being here in Raleigh. They're in the bracket with Purdue. This is what I call the shit bracket because outside of Villanova, there's really who's going to have a chance. And this is where you might see a school like West Virginia or Wichita State. Wichita State has made the Final Four before, I believe. But this could be a year where West Virginia, they've been knocking around for a while. They're in a very soft bracket. They do play pressure defense that not a lot of teams can plan for on the short weekend. So if they end up getting Villanova and they're able to pass them, I could see them making the Final Four. Because to be honest, if they match up against who in that lower bracket, I think the Big 12's overrated. You can't just beat up on yourself and then think that you're the best conference. We saw it for them in football. Whenever you make a bowl game and then get slaughtered, like what happens? To your prestige, it goes down. So this bracket, I really don't know. The safest bet is to just pick Villanova because they're the 1 seed and maybe pick West Virginia as an upset over Wichita State. And you could go with Purdue. Another team that would be scary is Florida. Florida has length. I watched them play Kentucky and a couple other games they were in, maybe Tennessee and who else? Another SEC
No
team.
way.
Who do
no way.
Who do you got?
I want to see UCLA pull that upset. They got rid of the Ball family, and magically they go from being absolutely garbage to making the tournament. So good for UCLA.
They have the one thing I look at here is coaching. They have Steve Alford. I remember was it Iowa in like 2000 something? They had like one of their highest tournament picks of all time. They were like a 2 seed, or maybe they were a 3 seed, losing in the first round with Coach Alford against someone. And that's what I think of whenever I think of his teams in the NCAA tournament. And that's why he hasn't won at UCLA. He left Iowa, went to New Mexico. He didn't win anything there. And when I'm looking at this, I just think it's going to happen again. He might get in the tournament. He definitely has them in. What's going to happen? I don't know. But it looks like they lost in the first round, upset to Northwestern State, 2006. There was a 3 seed. Crazy. That's what I think of when I hear of UCLA. I know the Ball stuff might get the team to band together, but I just can't pick him. I don't know. Any other picks for that one?
To me, I like West Virginia there. I think that they're one of those streaky teams that you watch them from time to time. Like if they're especially in the Pittsburgh area, their games are on, and they play well, and they could be a team that if they get hot, they could end up clearing the bracket on that side.
Yeah, and I want to mention that when I said the Big 12 is overrated and then I bring up West Virginia still plays like a Big East team to me. They haven't fully transitioned yet. I know it's been a few years since they've joined the Big 12, but like Texas Tech as a 3 is overrated. They'll either lose to UCLA or Florida. Almost a guarantee. And like I said, Purdue, they just lucked out that they had, they might, if Butler beats Arkansas, Butler could beat Purdue. And then you have, like I said, it's just a shit bracket. I don't have any other picks for that one. I would lean Villanova. My gut would say West Virginia. And then the safe bet on the bottom would either be Florida or Purdue. Those are my suggestions. Go out to the Midwest. Midwest is what everyone calls the scary bracket. But like Matt said and me to kick this off, it's pretty much set for you. It's going to be Duke. And it's going to be Kansas because NC State, Seton Hall, they'll tire each other out, and then they won't be able to match up with Kansas in the second round. Then you have Clemson, New Mexico State. They're going to go ahead and play probably Auburn. They'll probably beat Charleston. I would say Clemson's going to win that one. They're going to go ahead. They looked good all year. They had some upsets, but you're not going to beat Kansas. So, boom. they're eliminated. Then I go down to the bottom. TCU, Arizona State, I think it's Arizona State, and Syracuse. Don't be surprised if Syracuse goes on a run and they're playing Michigan State here in the second round, and Michigan State might squeak by just because Syracuse has enough talent to beat these TCU teams that should not be ranked ahead of them, even though just because they play in a tougher ACC, then they have to play the Big 12 schools, which gets hyped up, and then they'll all lose again. Michigan State will then make it, and they'll play Duke, and Duke will win. And I could see Duke beating Kansas too, because Kansas is a known choker. So you could be right, Matt. I could see Duke going pretty far, and to be honest, I think I like Duke on that whole side to make it to the national championship game. What do you think?
Duke's my national champion. Just because that dick Grayson Allen, like, he's so hateable. He has such a punchable face. Like, he just does. He's the Baker Mayfield of basketball. I can't stand him. But you know what? There's so much talent up and down that roster that get him in foul trouble. And like we talked last week, the guys on Duke's team that are on the bench could easily be starters for just about any one of these other teams on the bracket. But people go to Alabama for football. You go to Duke or Carolina for basketball. So those guys already know that they're penciling their ticket to the NBA, leaving there with Coach K there at the helm. I think it's pretty much smooth sailing.
Yeah, and like I said at the beginning, this isn't a 100% bracket. No one gets a 100% bracket. We're telling you which teams to advance so that you win your bracket. If you have teams like Oklahoma advancing because they have Trae Young, and you're like, oh, they're my 4-4 team, and then you're out of your bracket's busted within the second day. Don't be that guy. Pick the big dogs, ride it out, because there's a good chance at least to win your bracket. You at least have to have 2 Final Four teams, I would think, on most days, and you're going to get those. It doesn't matter if you pick Duke or Kansas. One of those is most likely going to advance. Like we said, it's probably going to be Arizona or Virginia, and then it's going to be. You could take your pick in the East. Villanova, I'm strongly in West Virginia upsetting them, though. And then Purdue, possibly. I know a lot of people are picking Purdue. I just don't see it. So I would say either West Virginia or Villanova there. And we'll go to the last bracket, West. This has Michigan and Florida State, and it has North Carolina. And as I look at this, I'm not sold on Xavier. If I'm looking at the North part, I know Florida State's in the top part here. Oklahoma, or Ohio State. If you're looking for a 12-5 upset, this could be it. I keep calling them Oklahoma. This Ohio State team, and that's not because I hate them. That's just because I keep making a mistake for some reason. They lost to Penn State twice. If you can't beat Penn State, there's something fundamentally wrong with your team. So they're ripe. They're ripe as any team for an upset. So I would have San Diego State there. I know some people think that Ohio State could win this bracket. I just don't see them getting past the Zags. So to me, that's a safe 12-5 pick. Because if you pick the upset, and it doesn't happen, you really only lose that one round if Zaga wins. So I would have Zaga go in the next 2 rounds, and then that helps insulate your bracket, so your points. You don't lose too many points. Now, if Ohio State would make it to the Final Four, then yeah, you'd kind of be screwed if you picked that. But I honestly think the Zags will beat them. And then Florida State, Matt, what do you think their chances are?
Well, I picked with my heart, and I went Noles to the Final Four. And before you burst out laughing, I thought about this.
Okay.
If the time is right for them to make a run, and the way that the bracket's aligned, I think that they could do it, because I think even though Xavier's a 1 seed, of the 1 seeds, Xavier is the most vulnerable, in my opinion, of being knocked off. I think Virginia, I know we talked Arizona, but Virginia could legitimately, I think, make a run to the Final Four. I definitely think Villanova potentially could, just because they're in that dumpster fire.
And they've been there before. And you can't look past
and they've been there before. So, I mean, even though it's easy to say, like, they've been there. So I think Xavier is the team that they're ranked in that spot. But what have they really done to show that they're they're ready to take that next step, and I don't know. But if there's a year to pick with your heart and not your logic, it's ride the Noles.
All right, we'll go with it. I do see that UNCG, Greensboro's in this bracket, and they made a big deal about that down here in Raleigh, about them making it. And also, I think that's North Carolina Central. So if you're looking for some random teams, I think I sent this to Matt. The North Carolina schools have won almost all of the ACC tournaments. So there's something here in North Carolina for basketball. So if you're looking for an upset, maybe stick with one of those North Carolina teams. The bottom half of this bracket, Houston, San Diego State. Houston scares me as a Michigan guy. If you're looking for a fun and exciting team to pick and you want to cheer for them and think that you'll like them, cheer for Michigan. They do things the right way. A lot of team ball, not a lot of they don't sign the biggest prep 5-star athletes. They bring in guys from out of the country. Mo Wagner's from Germany. Big. They have a 7-footer from Ohio. Teskey coming off the bench. He really picked it up in the Big Ten tournament. If you watch them in the Big Ten tournament, their style of play is a lot of shooting, a lot of 3 points, a lot of scoring, a lot of drives to open that up. So the offense is kind of a machine. And this year, finally, the defense has started to really pick up. So they could make a run. It really depends on shooting because they did play UNC, and I see it coming down to Michigan, UNC. And I don't want to say Michigan's a lock to go on because the way their offense works is if they don't hit their shots, they could get blown out any round. But in the past couple of years, I think John Beilein has only lost maybe once in the opening round, and that's like 8 years. So the odds are that he's going to advance a few rounds at least, and then it runs into UNC. I was at the game in Chapel Hill this year when Michigan played UNC. Michigan did not have their lineup set, but the three-pointers also did not fall, and that was a double-digit loss. I don't know what it ended up being, 12 or 13. And that was at home. If it happened again, I think it would be closer, but we've said it the whole time. I really can't go against UNC here. They're the reigning national champs. They have pretty much their whole team back, right, Matt? Who'd they lose? Maybe
I think so.
Did Justin Jackson, did he go on? I think he might be in the NBA.
Possibly.
But other than that, you see some of the guys. May's back, the guy that hit one of the game-winning shots. Justin Jackson is in the NBA. He's with the Sacramento Kings. They have their point guard back, and that's who I would pick. I don't want to say, I don't think, to be honest, I don't think UNC is going to get back to the national championship. If you're looking for an upset, I would either go, you could go three ways. Xavier, Gonzaga, Michigan, I think they all have probably the same odds to be slightly lower than UNC. And again, those are the next 4 seeds if you wanted to go. I have seen some crazy people pick Ohio State, but like I said, you can't pick them if they can't beat Penn State. So I would go UNC, I would say probably a 66% chance. And I know this probably doesn't work out, but maybe a 15% chance for the rest of those 3 teams, Xavier, Gonzaga, or Michigan, to make the Final Four. And then I honestly think Virginia's going to make the national championship. But I think they lose to the East team, which would probably be Duke for me. So, maybe that Duke-Kansas game for me is going to be tough to pick. And I didn't pick, and I'm not going to pick it on the show. I'll probably tweet it out. I know Matt said he's probably going to go Duke. But I have to look at the numbers. I could go crazy and pick Villanova, but I doubt it.
Well, I will say this. This is a really bad strategy for picking your bracket. I tried to one of the rare times I thought, I'll look at the stats and try to do some picks based off of stats. Last year I looked at a couple different things. I was looking at free throw percentage and 3-point shooting and picked my bracket just according to my heart completely out of it and just thought I'm just going to pick purely off of statistics, and I finished I think dead last. So don't pick. I believe your daughter even scored higher, and she was just randomly circling people.
Well, I will say this, to be honest, when you said free throws, that was one of my key goals. And when Michigan got in the Big Ten tournament this year, the free throw percentage for the team is like 60%. And Iowa takes them to overtime in the first round. And I think free throws are going to kill this team. They're going to squeak in with maybe a 10 seed, and then they're going to get killed. But they come back and beat that team and then win the next 3 games by double digits. So now I don't know, because the free throw shooting is so bad. So if you want to watch bad free throw shooting, watch that Michigan game, because like I said, they can shoot and get a big lead, but they will blow it because they will miss free throws.
And I think it's funny, the way that you describe Michigan is exactly the way that I see Florida State, where you could win by 30 points or you could get destroyed by 50. It could be a complete coin flip. There's people that follow Florida State that really want to see Coach Hamilton fired. They think that he cannot get the team to play consistently enough. But I think when you're not a specific basketball school, you're not going to get the money to do things that some of these other programs that are specifically basketball funded are getting. So I think you just kind of have to enjoy the fact that they're having some success right now. They just put 3 guys into the NBA, 4 guys into the NBA, and they're back in the tournament with a legit chance to potentially make some noise.
And I would love it if Michigan played Florida State in the Elite Eight. I think the NCAA, like you said, would hate it, because these two football powers meeting in the NCAA tournament would probably give them heartache. Because to be honest, let's be fair here, a lot of these big football schools also bring the better ratings in basketball. So that's one thing they don't want to look at. My last thing is they moved the stupid selection show to TBS, and the ratings fell off a cliff. A 1.6 rating, which I think is what the average is for Major League Baseball. I think it's like right on the nail from last year's Major League Baseball. So these big media markets like ESPN can go ahead and say, CBS can say, well, basketball is so popular. And once you move it to a smaller network like Major League Baseball's on, you get the same exact rating? Maybe it's just because people don't pay for cable anymore. So it's going to be, I'm going to keep an eye on that. What's it going to do? I think it's on TBS this year, the Final Four, which, I mean, I don't have cable. So that means, do I have to go out to watch the game? And if Michigan's not in it, is it easier just to follow along and, like Matt said, crunch the stats? So time will tell. I actually forgot to switch our topic. So for the video guys, I apologize to that. I missed the arrow move for the whole second half of the show. But that's it for me. Matt, you have any final thoughts?
It's a great time of year. We're starting to get into some of the draft things and seeing what teams are moving. I think you're going to see, as far as the NFL draft, what teams are going to do with those draft picks, because based off of free agency, that first wave, once the dust settles, you'll know what teams are going to be looking for the draft, and then we'll have that second wave come post-draft of who some of these veteran players are going to go to these teams. And also at the start of the baseball season, I think it's going to be exciting to see what Rick can get for us.
All right. Like I said, follow us on Twitter, S-Bound Sports. I don't know if I tweeted out the bracket yet, but I'll tweet ours out. We do a pick 'em on ESPN just to follow along. And Facebook, Southbound Sports, Instagram. I'll post some of my pictures of my tournament wins in the past, so you know it's good advice. Pick the big schools. Don't be a fool, and don't pick with your heart, really. Just go with go with your gut. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next week.